You going on stage, Ian?
Am I going on stage? There we go. Hello, Mina. So happy you could join us.
So I think we're here.
Yeah. Hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
All right.
I'm
Mina,
audible as well.
yeah, Mina, thank you for joining us today.
Yeah.
Ah, hello, hello, hello. Are we on and live?
Give us a shout out in chat if you can hear us.
That's
Or a
true.
smiley face or a clap. Do we have any people in the room? Yay!
All
Hello,
right.
Michelle.
All right. Yay, yay. Well, hello, I'm Raney Allen, and I'm your moderator for today. And I'm excited that you're here today. Do we want to wait a couple more minutes for people to come on, or should we just kick it right off, do you think?
I think we have a time for a couple of minutes, so let's just wait 2 or 3 minutes as people gather
Yeah.
back.
Yes, definitely.
I promise I won't sing or anything to keep everybody occupied.
You wouldn't want to listen to my voice. I know that.
No, yeah. Hey, Ian, can you speak so we can make sure we can hear you?
Yep.
Oh, good. Yay.
Cool.
Sing. Oh, no. So we have a few people in our house today, Heather Templeton and Ian Thomas. And then, of course, I don't know if you can see another one of our resources here, Mina Mistro. So while we give it another moment, I just wanted to give them a shout out here and say thank you for spending a moment helping us with this excitingness. So I think everybody loves tips and tricks on how to maneuver things in a more efficient manner. So I think people are going to be excited for this. So let me know, Heather, when you're ready to kick it off. Let me kick it off.
I think we're ready. Let's just go ahead and go. Give it a shot.
Yeah. Before a little bit of housekeeping here, before the end of our conversation here, we'll actually have a survey for all of you to fill out. We really appreciate your feedback. We love it. We want it. We hope that you give us raving reviews. I believe there's some opportunities to win some stuff here. So we thank you for your participation always. Like I've mentioned, we have Heather Templeton and Ian Thomas here, and they're going to really help us dive into the excitingness of efficiency around getting API build out with our CRMs. So payment CRMs, excuse me. So without further ado, Heather, I'm going to kick it off to you because I know you have those slides ready.
Hi, everyone. So I'm Heather Templeton. I'm a technical product manager here at Blackbaud with the payments engineering team. And I'm joined by Ian Thomas, who is an architect on the payments team. Both of us have been with Blackbaud many, many years working with fundraising and online giving. And in the last 6 months, we've been really diving into the payments API, and we both learned some things along the way that we felt like were worth sharing with our community, customers and partners alike. So it's hard for us to do a presentation and not see people nodding along or seeming engaged. So the more chats we get, if there's a problem or if you have a question or smiley faces, the better off I will do because I thrive on that feedback. So let's get started. So here's our agenda today. I'm going to lay some groundwork for us and kind of set the stage on where we're at, and then I'll go through some very specific use cases about how things are things that we came into when we were looking at the payments API and then integrating with either a Blackbaud CRM, RENXT, or a custom solution, or even a third-party integration. So this isn't specific to just Blackbaud products. It could be an integration with any backend software in our payments API. Also, you'll hear us talk a lot about the checkout. So I want to make sure you know that we feel strongly in the checkout because it's a compliant version. It's optimized. It gives customers as many payments modalities that we offer. It makes them available pretty quickly, and then it also has lots of efficiencies in the background as it related to having single transaction flow into BBMS and merchant services and saving time for your back offices. So that's why we feel very strongly about having customers use as much as the payments API and merchant services as possible. So, and we want you integrating with all of your partner applications, anything that you are taking payments online, offline. We want you using payments API and the merchant services and checkout. So that's why we're doing this presentation. So what it's not is a step-by-step guide in using our APIs. We're assuming you have a base level of the Sky API and the Payments API. We're sharing documentation around that. There's lots of other sessions out there that you can go to and explore and get up to speed. So we're not going deep dive into the APIs directly and how to get the setup and get started. That's not what we're doing today. We are talking about some specific use cases related to sharing and storing information into a back office system. Again, like I said, whether it's CRM, RENXT, or a third-party custom integration. So we want to give you some ideas to explore and think about as you make integrations using the Payments API. And the best thing about this session is you're going to walk away with some links to some articles, how to get started, but you're actually going to have access to an application that Ian has created on GitHub. So it's out there for you to use. You see all the samples, and you'll be able to just dive into some of the concepts we've talked about and see how it actually works. Any questions or anything before I go on? All level set, ready to go? Okay. So I'm going to turn it over to Ian, but just to let you know, we're going to start with how to call checkout, take a payment online, authorize it, tokenize it, and then return it back to your system for payment capture. So I'm going to pass over to Ian, and he's going to just jump right in and show you what he's created in just in the last week. So you'll be blown away. And then this is the source code and where you'll walk away from at the end. So Ian, it is all you.
Cool. It's not letting me share. Okay, now that you've
Stop share.
unshared. Okay, cool.
Oh.
There we go. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen and just let me know when you can see GitHub.
Yep, all good.
Cool. So before we jump into the actual demos, I wanted to kind of give a little overview of what the sample app, how it's structured, because there's a little bit of, I guess, early stages opinionated nature of this. It serves as a great like starting point, but there's some tech stack decisions and things like that that we make just as a place to get started. So I'm personally focused on .NET, so the example is .NET and things like that. But it's structured so that we can add to this as we go on. So this is something that we would love to keep building out over time to add more use cases and more different tech stacks, so we can kind of meet you where you are. So this is a good starting point, and also like Heather was saying, um, we're not really going through the like API onboarding or things like that, but just to make the sample work, period, this sample app does have all the necessary pieces behind the scenes that will interact with Payments API, OAuth, and all these other things that are kind of like the baseline that you need to be able to interact with the Payments API and checkout and all of that. So we don't need to dig into that today. We're just really talking about what's possible, what does it look like, um, so you can see the potential of what you can use. But this still is a great reference, I think, to be able to to shortcut your way to getting into like actually making stuff work. So just as a little quick overview, um, the sample app, as you'll see, um, there's three component pieces, and you'll see them as you go through. So just have like keep this in mind as a reference of what you're seeing. We have a backend server, which is like the server-side integration that you need to be able to talk to the API. There's also a back office experience. So when you're dealing with things like integrating with a CRM, those are all back office authenticated experiences. And there's a part of your payments integration that will also be more of a back office. Like if you want to manage recurring gifts or saved payments or things like that. Those are going to be behind an authenticated experience. But then there's also, as with all of these payment solutions, going to be a kind of a public facing like website experience. So there's no authentication. It's all running out on the internet. So like donation forms and other payment methods. So there's those three component pieces, and we'll kind of see them as we walk through. Um, so with that introduction, I will jump over into our back office experience. Um, so just as like a simple, like very straightforward step by step. Hopefully this sample app will be good for anybody who comes in later and wants to see what do I do. So the first thing we need to do is get the OAuth out of the way. This is going to send us over to Sky API. We're going to pick the environment that we want to work in. And this is going to send us back and tell this backend that it's working against a specific Blackbaud environment that is set up with payments. So with that, I'm authenticated now. I can jump over into the first just like, hello world getting started endpoint. Let's look at our payment configurations that we have created beforehand so that you can say, when I work with checkout or when I create a transaction, this is the specific account and config that I want to use. So I've selected this one. You can see this ID. You'll see the ID um, elsewhere in the screens as we use this. So I'm ready to go. I'm going to hop over into the front end, and I'll just refresh so we can see this. This is fetching from my back end some basic configuration. We have the account that I just picked plus a public key that is used to talk to checkout. Let's go ahead and make this a recurring transaction. So that's going to tell this integration to save my payments or save the payment details after I do the transaction. And we've got this kind of default amount, and we'll click donate now. This is going to pop up checkout. The cool thing is, as Heather was talking about, it's very compliant. This is an iframe that is owned by Blackbaud. All the payment details are kept inside this iframe, and there's nothing that's hitting your website or any other system for payment details. So we're nicely scoped out of PCI scope on your side. We click go through into payment. I'm going to put in my card details. Card details kept out of your systems and only in ours. So if I click finish and pay, it's going to try to authorize that transaction. And so at that point, when checkout closes, we have it's called a transaction token, and that's also used as an authorization token, kind of interchangeably with those terms. We also have the card token that represents the saved payment method that I just created. So we'll see these later too. So at this stage, once checkout closes, your transaction is just authorized. So behind the scenes, this has made a call into our backend to actually tell the backend in a secure place to charge that transaction and initiate the transfer of money. So that's what this next step in our backend, we can kind of see what the results of that looks like. We hop over into this checkout transaction tab, and we can see, just to make sure that we're matching things up, we have this DF27 transaction token that matches what we've got over here. So that's cool. And I've passed all this stuff back, and this data model, just a specific API thing. This is what I've got back from the API that says, here's all this information. There's lots more properties on this that you can read, but this is kind of the basics so you can get started. So we've created the transaction, it exists, and just because of how this demo is set up, we have called the capture endpoint. So this is a completed transaction and the funds will be transferred just under normal like bank timelines. Cool. So
You're going to come back to me then, Ian.
yep, sounds good. So I'll stop sharing and hand it over to Heather.
So we,
I was going to say, while we're transferring, was there any questions for Ian while he shared that? That's some excitingness. Thank you.
and the reason we wanted to go at this level in sharing the, I'm going to call them the tokens and the IDs and the various IDs, because there's actually several that flow through the system, is to just kind of lay the groundwork of what you're dealing with, and then how you can see them and use them later on in your back office. So there's a couple of important things to know. You're getting that authorization ID and then the ID when it's a successful transaction. That's the only ID you need to store in your back office system. You don't need to store any of the credit card numbers, like the last 4 digits, the expiry, any of that information. You don't need to store any of the success rates or any information related to the transaction, specific payment relation. You can use that ID to fetch that data from the payment system at any time through the get transaction endpoint. So that's what's really cool about not now how everything's are integrated. You're not having to store those details. And the reason you don't really want to store those details anymore is if you're doing store card or recurring gift, we are now automatically updating those cards when we get information from our processors that cards have expiry dates have been updated, changes have been made. We're automatically running that and catching that in the in our backend in our vault, and you don't want to have to worry about that in your back office system. You can just get it on demand, and that's how RENXT actually works today as well. As they're taking, they're only fetching the card details from that transaction ID. So I'm going to pause to see if anybody has any questions around that point right now. I can go over to Q&A. And we'll put a question in just to make sure it's working.
Yeah, we've gotten a comment so far, Heather, that it's been a great example. So that's great.
Okay.
And then, we do have one question in. It says, we've recently been asked to set up a way to take online payments for services, not donations, and not have the transactions flow through CRM. This appears to be the answer.
Yep, this is exactly a flow that you would want to do. And I'll call out one point that you probably would need to write down. We've actually added a new field onto the transaction called transaction category, and it'll let you set whether it's a donation, a membership, an event, other type of record that's taking the payment, and that's a really good field to set. You can also set the application name field and say whether it's coming from another system that you've created, and that'll show up in your reports and BBMS, and it helps with reconciling and segmenting your types of revenue that are coming in. Okay, I'm going to go to the next section. Yes, the extra fields are noted in the documentation. It's transaction category and application, but they are in the documentation as well. Okay, so the next area that seems to get people tripped up on is the recurring gifts. And Ian alluded to it a little bit, but when we go back to the code, he'll show you specifically what I'm talking about. The way checkout works is it does not store the card information unless you tell it to. And the way you tell checkout to store the card for future use is by setting the token yourself and passing in the token. And checkout will use that token to store the card details. I've seen a lot of customers think they're setting up a recurring gift by just checking is recurring, and that's not what triggers the card to be stored in the payments vault. You really need to pass in that token, and then that's where that token is what you use for the stored card details later. And again, we're updating cards as we I like the word automagically, as they're happening in the back end. And so you no longer have to keep the card details on your side. We do that for you. I also want to point out that like with RENXT now, gifts are automatically retried. If there's a failure, they automatically run the recurring schedule. There's no downloading to batches and updating. That's just automatically processing in the back end. And you have the capability to set that retry logic from it's defaulting to 2, but you have a configuration in the UI for RENXT that allows you to set it up to 5. So that's recurring giving and recurring gifts and how they work. Let's see. Any kind of questions around that? And I'll let Ian go back and show you some code related to those tokens, and then he'll kind of jump into the next. Michelle, can you be more specific in what's true for recurring gifts? They don't automatically try. You still have to, well, unless you set up a business process to run. I think CRM has business processes that you can set up that'll run your recurring gifts for you, but you do have to define them through a business process. Okay, thanks. All right, I am going to try to stop sharing, and we're going to let Ian show you more about the token that's used to store the card details and what that looks like.
Cool. Yep, let me share my screen again. Okay. So it's probably good, I think, then to jump over into a little bit more specific code, kind of how Heather was describing it. This is just really, really super simple, hopefully good example, portable code. So we're looking at the client side JavaScript integration with checkout. So you can see just basic docs. You can see here's our checkout file that we have that we've included, and some nice, pretty reproducible code. So we have that checkbox that I showed over on this screen. When that's checked, I just do this little crypto.random UUID that's going to create a token of the right format. And then when you want it to save your payment information, you just pass card token into the data the arguments that you pass into this open payment form. So this card token then is what we pass down through into the back end as, and this is the API that's written for the sample app. This isn't like a payments API. So I'm just taking this card token and I'm passing it into my backend service. And it is the responsibility of the backend, like your integration, to store that token for future use. We have a really simple, just like kind of almost or it's a very sample app related thing, but it is nice that the sample app will preserve that. So you can just kind of see what that looks like. And from that one that I ran through first, you can see that's the token that was created that's passed down through. So if I go over into back office transaction, or this could also be called like recurring transaction, this next step in the sample operates in the standpoint of I have saved this token that I want to use later. So as Heather was explaining, you can take this token and pass it into RENXT or other CRMs that have their own integration with payments that you can set up a recurring gift on their side. You give them this card token and they will use that to charge future gifts. You can also use the payments API with that token to create gifts directly, which is what, or not gifts, the transactions directly within the payments API. So that's what this sample does. I think in the future, we'll probably have the second flavor, which kind of offloads that into RENXT. But there's more than one way to do it. Specifically like Mike's question about, can we do these payments without them going through CRM? Yes, you definitely can. So if you save the card token, which we did, just clicking this create transaction button is going to call a different endpoint than we did for the checkout based flow. This is a back office create transaction endpoint. It's going to create the transaction brand new. This is a new transaction separate from the one that we did with checkout. And just to kind of follow up, here's our next step, talking about how these IDs relate to each other. I have my card token, I have my payment configuration ID, I have the created transaction ID, and then I'm using all of these going into RENXT so that the RENXT or your other CRM knows how to fetch those payment details later. By calling the payments APIs. So you can see on this gift record that I've created, this is a RENXT gift API example. I have my payment config ID mapped to this BBPS configuration ID. My transaction ID that exists here is mapped into BBPS transaction ID. Account token maps up to my card token property that I've used. And this ID is the ID of the actual record in RENXT. And then if I go,
Hey,
yeah,
Ian,
yep, go ahead.
before you jump,
Yep,
Kristen had well, somebody answered it, but the question in the Q&A was, does the token have a required format? And Mina was
yes,
kind enough to say all tokens require a UUID format.
yep, yep. And that's where, especially if you're coming from the JavaScript, that example that I have does create it in that exact UUID format. So it should be a pretty good reference. Cool.
Okay.
Yeah, and all these other IDs are also UUID pretty universally. Cool. And so before I jump over to the next step, just to kind of revisit this checkout transaction, I didn't talk about this before, but this also does, after the payment is created, it does go and create a gift record into RENXT. So you can see how these tokens or these tokens and IDs match up. So same for the three, like account token, transaction, and configuration ID. But you also have a fourth ID in this case, which is that auth token that represents the checkout transaction that was created. So in this case, if you're coming from a checkout experience, you're going to have that auth token that maps into checkout transaction ID in the RENXT API. And if you're not coming from checkout, if you're creating that recurring gift behind the scenes without a checkout interaction, you're going to just have the that's going to be blank, but that's okay. So let this finish and I can show that it's empty.
And then you want to show update card info
Yep.
next. Is that okay?
Yep. Yeah, so you can see that's blank, but otherwise they're all very similar and these properties match up. So last thing, nice last use case for these safe payment methods. So I put in a test card on the checkout experience over here, and this token represents that safe payment method. And if I call update card, which is another interaction with the checkout experience, I can take this card that you can see that matches what I put in before. If I put in a new one, I can update it, and that's going to change the payment information that sits behind that card token so that you can update the expiration date or whatever. And so that token is kind of persistent, but the payment information that it references behind the scenes is allowed to change. And that's the same thing with like credit card updater and other things. So these tokens can be stable in your system while the payment information underneath changes. And just to show that it wasn't smoke and mirrors, you can see that the card number changed. Cool.
Thanks, Ian. All right, you want to stop sharing and let me go back
Yep,
to slides. Let me get.
sounds good.
And the reason we wanted to show that is because the update card section is because we know today in today's world or legacy systems, you're taking import files and passing them back and forth with new card details. And you're updating your CRM as well as your merchant services or payments with those card details. We think the update card experience is decreases all those import files going back and forth through the system, and you only have to update the payment vault. And your CRM can stay intact, and your recurring gifts can stay intact and not have to be changed. That's why we're really excited about the update card functionality.
And to interject here, Stephen asked if the last four of the digits would automatically update within this. Is that how that works? Where he asked, does it update the card functionality within the CRM transaction where the revenue record displays?
No, it does not. It only updates the card details that are in the payments vault. It
Okay.
isn't back updating into your CRM, which is part of the reason why the tokens and the transaction IDs are important, is you're not having to keep them in sync anymore. You're keeping the system of record payments for card details, and your CRM is becoming not required to keep those card details anymore.
And
It's just focusing on the token.
Kind of going back to your previous comment a little bit earlier, where you're saying instead of holding those last four in your CRM anymore and holding that data. Yeah. Okay.
Gotcha. Yeah, exactly.
And I think too, like just using the RENXT example, the last four for an RENXT gift represent the payment method that was actually used at the time that gift was created. So the token might be reused across gifts, but the last four, well, it's kind of like a point in time for that one. So I don't know what specifically the revenue record for CRM represents, if that's different, but you can, the way that RENXT is storing it is it's saying the last four for the card that were used for this one. And if you update it, then the next gift that gets created will have a new last four.
New last four, yeah. I know it's I don't want to call it a habit. It's an existing process we have in place today. I'm interested to see if we stop relying on the last four and as an identifier for the card, an identifier for the donor, and if how we can get tighter and tighter in linking that and connecting the information between the gift or the revenue piece to the payment and make that identification easier. So I'm interested in comments around that. I'm going to go. We have 12. Go ahead.
So we had one question here for you. Oh, it looks like Mina was able to answer it around PayPal, Venmo, and Apple Pay about the tokenizations options for those. So I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, thanks, Mina. And thanks, Raney, too, for keeping us managing us correctly through the Q&A and the chats. And it is hard back here. So I also wanted to bring up back office processing. So there is the concept where you might have individuals taking credit card transactions or payment transactions that are from, a telethon or a back office where someone's called in and wants to give a gift over the phone, and how those are processed. So if you're in one of our applications, we set that up appropriately so it's not doing any fraud checks. But if you're outside of an application, you want to set it up appropriately if you're calling checkout so that it's not going to do any of that. Too many transactions coming from the same IP, too many with the same amount. Is it card testing going on? So we have set up a way that bypasses those security checks, and it authorizes your application to go at that exempt level for fraud checking. And that's what this back office process right here, this slide has, and it points you to the articles that'll show you how to get that security token key and pass that in to checkout. There's also the customer will need to authorize themselves to allow that to happen on their system. So there's a KB article that tells them how to do that, a knowledge base article. And I just wanted to bring that up because it is a good method for if you have a partner application that is helping get lots of gifts in at a single point through a back office type system. All right, that's the last for our slides today. We can take more questions. I think we have 10 minutes left. I'll go ahead and let Raney put up the survey if she would like. And then, as promised, we have a lot of links to our developer communities. I encourage you to join that. As you can see from this dev conference, we have thousands of developers out there working within our applications, lots of experience across all of our applications and in the payments API. So join those communities for questions. We monitor the communities as well. And then Ian He's put up all his sample code into GitHub. We'll keep adding to it out there as well. As more use cases that are common come up that people need help with our systems. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thanks for coming. As you complete the survey, if you have an idea or you want to partner with us at a future session for BB Days or at BBCon, then let us know. I'm always looking for partners that are using our applications, as well as Mina, who's on here as well, as our product manager for payments. So I hope you've enjoyed it, and thanks for having us.
We have a couple of questions in here, Heather, if you want to. Okay. Well, I guess one right now. Is it possible to disable PayPal Venmo with checkout if someone is trying to give a reoccurring gift?
So recurring gifts for PayPal are currently not available in the system right now. We're actively working on it. And Venmo does not work with recurring as well. Are you getting, is somebody getting an error when they're trying to give a recurring gift? Or are you wanting to make sure, Kristen, that doesn't come up as an option in the future? I'll just need to make sure I take that feedback appropriately. I understand it. And I have my email on here too if somebody wants to give me straight. And Mina did let me know that when you set up your payment configuration, you set up what options you want to allow on checkout, and PayPal is one of those options, so you can disable it. And I do know that onboarding, we're going to say if you want to allow recurring for PayPal or not. So that is part of our configuration inside Merchant Services, the portal.
Nice. Well, Ian, again, thank you for all of your work and additions to GitHub. I know it will help a lot of customers. Hopefully, we hope so anyway. And like Heather said, we would love feedback. We love BBCon participants. And Heather, thank you for being so wonderful for putting this together as well. Do we have any other questions before we end a few minutes early? I don't want to shut anyone down.
Can we get some feedback, frowny faces or claps or hi? It takes a lot of courage for us to get out from under our desks to do this. So hope you all enjoyed it.
I had to lock my door to make sure the kids didn't barge in during this one.
Right. Mine's the dog, so I get it.
Cool. Thank you all. And you can all have the few minutes before your next session. And thanks for coming and spending time with us at BB Days. We appreciate it.
Thank you. And fill out the survey. Okay.
Thank you.